If you're a pastor or a preacher, I can almost guarantee that you have used this statement at some point before. No one woke up and decided to ruin their life. Maybe you were talking about sexual morality or alcoholism or abuse or addiction, whatever it was. But, we would say this all the time. Nobody woke up and decided to become an addict. Nobody woke up one day and said, today's the day I'm going to just ruin my marriage, right? It happens one small step at a time. And the same is true for pastors. No pastor wakes up one day deciding, I'm going to just stick my church where it is. I'm going to lead a stuck church. No pastor says that. However, pastors constantly wake up and realize that their calendar is very full, their team is very exhausted, and the mission that they once felt energized around feels harder to reach than it ever has. If that sounds familiar at all to you, this conversation is definitely for you. I want to talk about why so many churches feel busy but stalled. They feel productive but under intense pressure, right? They're very active, but there's just a lot of unclearness in it, a lot of fog in it. And what do intentional leaders do differently as they plan each month, as they plan each year? Every year, pastors sit down to plan, and we look at the last year's calendar. I talked about this before. We look at last year's calendar, and then we just slide the dates forward and tweak a few things and details, and we go, boom, call it strategy. It feels responsible. At least we have a plan, right? And it certainly is efficient. But in ministry, it can even feel faithful in a way. But here's the problem that we always feel when we operate this way. You can have a full calendar and still feel or be very much stuck. You can have like a little bit of momentum, but have lack of clarity. You can be very busy and still miss the outcomes that you are hoping and praying for. And the reason is because most church calendars aren't built around, and I like this idea here, they're not built around conviction. They're built just around habits. Think about this. Our calendars are almost always built around conviction, not around habit. We repeat things because they are just familiar, because people expect them, because it used to work once, because I heard a story about. And by the way, changing anything feels very risky. If you change something on the calendar from last year, if you remove something you've done before, or especially done frequently before, you're in for some hard conversations. So over time, these risks and the issues with change, they quietly kind of turn into almost unexamined commitments. We end up being committed to things that we aren't even examining anymore. We're not even curious if they're worth doing. We just do it because, again, we all hate this phrase, but because we've always done it. And you know what? Those commitments, they create such pressure for churches. They create financial pressure, time pressure, burnout. So many negative things come from that kind of pressure. And you know what? It's not a spiritual pressure, is it? It really is a structural pressure. So let me give you a shift for you to consider in 2026. I'm going to talk a lot this year about intentional leadership, okay? It's my word of the year, intentional. So intentional leadership, it really does start with a different first question. Most planning conversations, whether you're doing it with your elders, maybe you're doing it with a lead team or some key volunteers, most planning conversations begin with how. How can we do this again? How can we do this better? How can we promote it? How can we increase participation? And those are not unimportant questions. They're actually critical questions, but they are operational questions, not directional questions. Do you know what is a directional question? Why? Why are we doing this at all? Why does it matter now? Why is this the best way to serve the people that God has entrusted to us? Why questions are directional, not operational. So when leaders skip the why, leaders end up optimizing activity over purpose or over mission. They improve systems, but without clarifying direction. And there's nothing worse than having a great system that's leading you in the wrong direction, to the wrong destination. And the result, right, of that is, we know it's a church that just stays really busy while the mission quietly plateaus, declines, maybe even feels lost completely. So here's what we can do, though. We can use a framework to help bring why to the forefront of how and what. There really is a simple order that intentional leaders follow. Whenever you're thinking about planning, whether it's for a year, a quarter, a month, a week, it doesn't matter. First, the first thing we do is clarify why something exists. What is the why? Next, we define the outcome that it's meant to produce. And then finally, and only after we've done those first two things, we decide how to do it. When that order is reversed, if the what, becomes the busy work, if the what becomes the first question that we ask, the how are we going to do this becomes the first question, we become so busy, so exhausted, and we might be heading in the complete wrong direction and we don't even know it. I've worked with pastors who were overwhelmed simply because they were carrying calendars filled with things that they didn't even fully choose to do. I mean, maybe this is you. You inherited something, or you just felt the need to protect something no matter what, or you're sustaining something, and maybe because you don't want to have a hard conversation, or maybe because you just aren't even sure what to do with it. I get it, right? But intentional leadership is the moment you decide that nothing can continue without a clear why. Nothing can continue if it isn't directly connected to your reason for existence, your mission, your purpose. That's the why. And you don't keep things because they're old. You don't keep things because they're comfortable. You don't keep doing things because for any reason other than it still serves the mission that God is leading you to pursue today. So let me just give you a very simple exercise that you can do this week. Again, you can do this by yourself. You can do this with your team, with some volunteers, your elders, whoever. If you can't do it this week, try to figure out a time in January to do it. And this may take you a second, okay? I'd love for you to consider listing every major initiative you already have planned for 2026. And not what you hope to add, okay? Because there's probably some of that, but what is already on the calendar? What is already planned? And then as you list these things out, right, go back and beside each one, I just want you to write a single sentence, a single statement explaining why that thing exists. Now, here's the fun part, right? If it takes more than one sentence, clarity is definitely missing, okay? If you or your team can't agree on the statement or the sentence, there's some alignment that is missing. And until all of the whys are nailed down, you can't even begin to think about the hows of logistics. Right? This one discipline reduces pressure faster than anything you can almost do. I mean, adding staff, cutting programs, reworking systems, all of those things may help somewhat, but this is the one discipline that is going to give you such clarity as you head into this next season of ministry. And the reason is that it restores confidence in everything that you're doing. So, if you will do this, if you'll commit to do it, here's what I believe the outcome will be for you. Here's what I think you're going to discover. Intentional leadership, it helps like you do fewer things, but with greater purpose. It means you'll be choosing clarity over just activity. You'll have more conviction, not just grabbing on for some momentum, right? And I talk about direction and destination a lot, but direction's going to be the default. You're going to know where you're going, and you're going to know why everything is where it is and how it connects to where you're going. I mean, you know this, right? A new year alone is not going to create new outcomes. Like a new calendar doesn't create clarity. It's just a page in the year. It really is only through intentional leadership that we can find those things. So before you ask how to do anything better this year, stop and ask why you're doing it at all. That single thought may change more than anything else in your plan this year.